Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, certified financial planner and owner of Elevation Financial. Thanks for joining me today. Glad you are here. The quickest way to get out of debt. This is a guide to choosing the right strategy today. We're going to talk through debt repayment strategies on the quickest way and some of the options. So debt is often a way of life for millions of us. We're conditioned to buy things on credit, including cars, appliances, home improvement, everyday stuff. Debt's sometimes necessary, but it can also have a negative impact in our lives. The impact of debt on millions of American families and individuals is pretty substantial, and it typically manifests in a variety of ways. One is impacts on our daily life. If you have significant debt, your financial resources are often drained. It's difficult to cover basic living expenses. Some of the surveys out show that on average, Americans have around $30,000 in personal debt, excluding mortgages. 45% of those surveyed spent up to half their monthly income on debt repayment. This can really limit a person's ability to afford necessities, even food, housing, healthcare, etc. So debt's a real problem. It also impacts our mental and physical health. There's studies that have shown that debt can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and the constant worry about making ends meet can really lead to mental and physical health problems, including high blood pressure and other stress-related illnesses. It also impacts long-term financial goals. Also, high levels of debt can interfere with buying a home, retirement savings, funding kids' education. There's a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research that found that increasing student loan debt has led to a decrease in home ownership among young adults. Along the same lines, according to the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College, those with student loan debt accumulate 50% less retirement wealth in their 401k by age 30. Debt also impacts your credit score. If it's not well managed, it can lead to lower credit scores, making it more difficult to buy a house or qualify for other types of loans that you may need. Also impacts family dynamics in relationships, I should say. So financial stress can strain relationships. Couples that argue about money once a week were twice as likely to divorce as those who argued about finances less often, according to a study by Jeffrey Dew at Utah State University. So debt and financial stress in general affects relationships, family dynamics, couples, personal relationships with other family members. So debt's a big problem. A lot of individuals and families find themselves in over their heads and drowning in debt. This can be in the form of things like credit cards, student loans, car loans, HELOCs, IRS debt. The list goes on and on. So once debt reaches a certain point, many people find that they've had enough and they have a desire to get rid of their debt. So this can sometimes feel like an overwhelming task, but luckily there are some methods that can help you get out of debt faster. And finding the right method for paying off debt will depend on a lot of factors, including your personality, your financial situation, the nature of your debts. And we're going to talk about some of the most popular and effective tools today to get out of debt. Some of those tools include the debt snowball, the avalanche method, the anger method, some debt management programs, and a hybrid method that may use two or more of these methods together. So here's an explanation of each method and how to apply it to your situation. First, the debt snowball. The debt snowball method is a debt repayment strategy where you pay off your debts in order of smallest to largest, regardless of interest rates. So this strategy is intended to help you build momentum like a snowball rolling down a hill. Here's how it works. So first, you list your debts from smallest to largest. This order doesn't take into account interest rate. It's purely based on the amount owed. So forget about interest rate, your debt listing smallest to largest. Then make minimum payments on all your debts except the smallest. The smallest debt is your primary focus, and you should pay off as much as you can toward this debt each month. Pay off the smallest debt as quickly as possible. By focusing all your extra money on the smallest debt, you can aim to eliminate it very quickly. Then, once the smallest debt is paid off, move on to the next smallest debt. You apply the amount you were paying on the first debt to the next debt on your list, in addition to the minimum payment you were already making on that second debt. So you add that extra payment, and it snowballs, so to speak, to the next one. And then you repeat this process until all your debts are paid off. As you pay off each debt, the amount of money you can apply to the next debt increases, thus creating that snowball effect. So the debt snowball method is primarily effective because of the psychological momentum it creates. often described as small wins approach. This method capitalizes on the human tendency toward achieving short-term, tangible goals. It's much easier to knock out those small short-term goals quickly. And here's why it works. You get a sense of progress. By paying off the smallest debt first, you're quickly seeing debt completely eliminated. And this gives you a feeling of progress, gives you a feeling of achievement, makes the overall debt seem more manageable. This feeling of accomplishment can really give you the motivation to stick with the plan and move on to that next debt because you see very quick progress. Also, it's positive reinforcement. When you successfully pay off a debt, even a tiny one, it reinforces the belief that you're capable of clearing your debts. It can increase your confidence and motivation to tackle those next ones. Also, simplification is a goal here. Each debt you pay off means one less payment to think about each month. This simplifies your financial situation, making it easier to manage, which in turn can reduce financial stress and make the whole process seem less overwhelming. It's also behavioral change. The snowball method encourages individuals to change their spending behavior and habits. It provides structure for repaying debts, and the success of seeing debts disappear can incentivize maintaining better financial habits in the future. So the excitement you get can really incentivize you to improve your financial habits. So while the debt snowball method is not the fastest or the least expensive method, it doesn't really consider interest rates. Therefore, it's not always the fastest. It does work because it plays into human psychology and our desire for quick wins and clear progress. So that emotional boost can be exactly what some people need to stay committed to long-term debt repayment plans. So it's not mathematically the fastest, but it could be the fastest or the quickest way to repay debt if it gets you to stick to the program. Next, let's talk about the avalanche method. The debt avalanche method is another way to pay off debt, but unlike the snowball method, it prioritizes debts with the highest interest rates. So here's how it works. First, you list your debts by interest rate. You start by making a list of all your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest. So this often means that things like credit card debts will be at the top of the list, while lower interest debts like student loans or car loans may be at the bottom. You make minimum payments on all debts, and each month you'll make the minimum payment, and that keeps your accounts in good standing, prevents your debts from growing larger or late fees or penalties. But you pay extra on the debt with the highest interest rates. Any extra money you have for debt repayment goes toward the debt with the highest interest rate. This reduces the amount of interest you'll pay over the life of the debt. And then you repeat until all your debts are paid off. So similar to the snowball method, you work your way up the list. Once the debt with the highest interest rate is paid off, you move on to the debt with the next highest interest rate, and so on until all your debts are paid off. The advantage of the debt avalanche method is that it saves you money in the long run, and you'll pay less interest overall. So it may take longer to see progress, since the high interest debts may also be larger debts, but mathematically it's a more efficient strategy than the debt snowball method. The challenge with the avalanche method is that it requires discipline and patience because progress might seem slow at first. So it may not offer the same quick psychological wins as the debt snowball method. But if you're able to stick with it, it's a very effective way to tackle high interest debt. Next, the anger method. Another method of debt repayment is the anger method. This selection of a debt repayment strategy is deeply personal, intertwined with emotional responses to the debts we carry. And at times, certain debts might evoke a stronger emotional response or cause more distress emotionally than others. So in these circumstances, there's a strategy called the anger method that could be appropriate. So it involves identifying the debt that triggers the most negative emotions or stress and focusing on paying off that one first. The anger stems from various sources. For example, it could be car loan for a vehicle from an ex-spouse that spouse is currently using. Paying for an asset you no longer have access to might give you feelings of resentment, making it a prime candidate for this anger method. Or maybe you have a loan from a family member that carries, the risk of damaging personal relationships. Maybe you got a loan from an uncle or a parent and they keep bugging you about it. And the fear and discomfort from the situation might make you really eager to get rid of that debt as soon as possible because it's stressing you out. Maybe you owe money to the IRS. The anxiety attached to that might really want you to expedite payment toward that one. So the anger method essentially channels your negative emotions that is associated with a specific debt into motivation to pay off that debt first. So by tackling the most emotionally burdensome debt, you feel a sense of relief and you achieve a significant psychological victory. And that can boost your confidence and motivation to face those remaining debts. Next, let's talk about debt management programs. So, debt management programs can be a really effective way to make your debt easier to pay off and sometimes faster, and sometimes give you cash flow relief as well. So, there are some nonprofit debt counseling services. One of them is the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. There are some others. They provide an array of services designed to assist you in managing those debts. So here's how it works. So first, they provide counseling and education. So they do a one-on-one session, at least one or more sessions. There's a certified credit counselor. They review your situation, your income, expenses, debts, and they get a comprehensive understanding of your debt situation, your financial health. And they'll offer you different management options for attacking that debt and paying it off. And then they implement, where appropriate, a debt management program or a DMP. So if it's determined that a debt management plan is your best option, the agency will help you establish one and set that up. So it involves consolidating your unsecured debts into one monthly payment, which makes the payments kind of easier to manage. You make that payment to the counseling agency, and the agency then distributes the payment among your creditors. So it kind of streamlines the process. Also, the agency negotiates with your creditors as part of the DMP, again, which is debt management plan or debt management program. The counseling agency will negotiate with your creditors on your behalf. So they can do things often like lower interest rates, waive fees, arrange lower monthly payments. All these things can help make your debts more manageable and help you pay them off faster. They also do regular payments and tracking. So once your DMP is in place, you make regular payments to the agency, which then disperses the funds to your creditors. The agency then tracks your progress and provides those periodic updates. And throughout the process, they're still providing continuous support and education to help you stay on track. And then once your debt management program is complete, all those payments are done, the debts are paid in full, and every debt included in that DMP with the agency is paid in full, and you've completed the program. So it's really important to note that these programs can be really helpful. I've seen it work many times to provide some relief and some management help when it comes to debt payments, but they're not a quick fix and they do require time and commitment. So DMPs typically take about 3 to 5 years to complete on average, and not every debt can be included in a debt management program. So, some of them can, but certain debts won't be eligible for being included in the program. And you're also typically required to close your credit card accounts, and that could affect your credit score. So, while it may be a short term ding on your credit score or provide some damage, this could still be a great option because you might have a worse situation by staying in debt and following the plan you were on before. If you get a better plan in place, that can still be advantageous, even if your credit score takes a short term hit. So, when you're looking for a debt management program, it's really important to be aware of the difference between nonprofit providers and for-profit providers. So for for-profit debt management services, they're often called debt relief programs as well. They take a much more aggressive approach. These for-profit agencies or for-profit companies, they often will settle your debts on your behalf, which can get them paid off faster, but they do a lot more damage to your credit. When you settle those accounts, then you can take years to recover sometimes to the damage to your credit score. The nonprofit providers take a more conservative and balanced approach, and it generally does not damage your credit as much. They keep your accounts open and negotiate better terms, which can keep your accounts in good standing. So be aware of the difference. Next, you can do a hybrid method. You don't have to just pick one. So each method can work well independently, but it can also make sense to combine them in order to get out of debt faster. So, for example, let's say you have the following debts. So stay with me. I'm going to throw some numbers out here. You've got a car loan, $12,000 balance, $325 monthly payment, 6% interest rate. Visa, $3,000 balance, $100 monthly payment, high interest rate. I'll just kind of gloss through these. Loan from your parents, $5,000 balance. MasterCard, Kohl's card, outstanding medical debt. You've got a bunch of debts that you're listing out here. So how would you attack this debt? You could use debt snowball, but the danger here is that you may lose motivation because you're really annoyed by that loan from your parents. It's not the lowest balance, but it's the most annoying. So if you did classic debt snowball, you would see a quick win from the other ones, but that debt from your parents would be hanging out there, bugging you longer, and it would just kind of psychologically eat away at you. So a hybrid method might be start with the anger method. Actually, first, let me back up a minute. Start with a credit counseling agency, one of the nonprofit ones, consolidate the credit card balances into one, lower your monthly payment overall, get better interest rates, really kind of compress that lump sum of credit card payments into a more manageable program. Get that in place first. Then potentially attack that loan from your parents, which is that anger method because it's bugging you. Knock that out first. You feel a sense of relief, quick win psychologically. Then you move on to debt snowball with that new debt management plan in place in the mix. So the hybrid approach again would be the anger method to knock out that parent loan, knock that out first, feel great about it. After you've consolidated your debt initially into that debt management program, then move to debt snowball once you've knocked out the parent loan and attack it the rest through debt snowball. So you can combine methods. You can kind of put these methods together and take a hybrid approach as well. All right, so choosing the right method for you, wrapping things up. So when you're determining the quickest way to get out of debt, keep in mind it's not always just about the math. So typically the avalanche method is mathematically the quickest way to get out of debt. But if you don't stick to the plan because you lose motivation, does it truly end up being the quickest? Possibly not. On the other hand, if you hate paying interest and you find motivation in minimizing interest paid, and that's just really something you're focused on, the avalanche method may work for you because you get super excited about attacking that highest interest first. So you've got to know your personality. If you need quick wins or there is debt that drives you crazy, the snowball or anger methods could be a good fit. And don't forget to combine the tools available to create a plan that is right for you. So getting out of debt is as much about emotion and behavior as it is about math. The important thing is to be intentional and have a plan. So getting out of debt doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen without focus. So create a debt repayment plan that takes into account not only the numbers, but also your personality and your emotional perspective, because ultimately the quickest way to get out of debt will be the one that leverages your strengths and your motivations and your specific situation. So keep that in mind when you're looking for the quickest way to get out of debt. All right, with that, we will wrap it up there. As always, thanks for joining me today. You're welcome to reach out via my website anytime. My website is elevationfinancial.com. You can send a message there, or better yet, book a complimentary money session. And I'm always happy to chat about whatever's on your mind. With that, thanks for joining me today. Have a great day. We will see you next time.